I think you fooled me. Well, nu är Danny här. Ni kommer ha möjlighet att få ställa lite frågor. Så räck upp en hand. Så springer jag bara runt och mikrofonen. Han har spelat emot legender som John Cleese och Clint Eastwood. Han har medverkat i flertalet tv-serier. Men han är förmodligen medverkad i filmer som Dödligt vapen med Roger Murtaugh. Please give a warm welcome to Danny Glover. My first question to you, Danny, is going to be, you started acting at an older age than usual actor. How come?
Well, I started really, the decision to become an actor wasn't until I was like 29, 30 years old. And I began went to university and graduated my degrees in economics. And I worked in city government, in community development for about 6.5 years after I finished university. And so midway in between, I just happened to, I'd done some theater while I was in college, community theater, small theater. And at the time, there was a movement around black arts. And so a lot of the plays and work that I did was what I would call agitprop theater. And so, but I had no interest really in going into acting. And then I just started doing improvisation theater around 1974, 73, 74. And then it emerged and it began to take shape in some other way. And so these are the kind of things you don't know, because I always tell young actors that it's important that you're able to visualize your growth. And what I mean by that is that you're able to kind of see your own transformation as you develop and learn more. And you learn more, and then you'll be able to see it, and it becomes tangible to you. And so that's when I began. I knew that I was on my way to doing something else, and I was around 29, 30 years old. I was a father then, and I had, and had a family. And sometimes when I was at the American Conservatory of Theater on Saturday, when my daughter was 6 months old, and bring her to the classroom in classes, and that's been all day, And so, and she's still doing. I'm still doing that. You're always a father, It's a beautiful thing. You never know how being. It's a beautiful. My father loved being a father, man. He genuinely, I think he just loved being a father, man. And I guess part of my genealogy, from my dad. So that's how it all began. Then I went to American Conservatory Theater. The other important thing was I discovered a writer who I felt wrote for me. And I always think that you have to think of what you're doing as important. Not simply the fact that you're on stage is important, but it has some sort of value to it, and cultural production has value to it. And I found the writer Ethel Fugard, Athol Fugard, Fugard. He's a South African playwright, and he's probably considered one of the great playwrights of the last half of the 20th century. And I discovered his work, and I just, did his work and worked on dialects and accents, and that's how I ended up doing Mandela in 1986, playing Mandela for an HBO project. And so, but it was critical to my own growth and my own transformation to have someone who I felt words were comfortable. They were my words, you know, his writing, but they were my words, and I attached myself to the words. And so it took me from San Francisco to LA to off-Broadway in New York in 1979 and on Broadway in New York in 1982. And Robert Benton saw me opening night at Yale Rep and selected me for Places in the Heart with Sally Fields in 1983. It's my first major role.
That was a very, very touchable story, I would say. Yeah, and I also know regarding your career that you have been a police officer in like 15 of your movies. Is police a role that you prefer to play, or do you have any other special role?
Well, I mean, I think on the one hand, you can look at the occupation of the character, but it's always who the character is in the context of the story. You know, Roger Murtaugh was interesting. I don't think that was the first police officer that I played, but it was something about that script that attracted me to it. And there were things that I've turned down as well, you know, with police officers. So it just so happens that we're in a state, I mean, look at what you look on television now. It may have been police forces back in the day, and you may have NYPD Blue or something like that. But now it's Criminal Minds, you know. I mean, if I was working at this particular point, beginning of my career, I'd probably be doing Criminal Minds, you know, Special Victims, and, you know, all the other kind of stuff. But, you know, I take this story, the movie, the film, and then I approach it from the vantage point that that I'm a part of something, and I try to, in some sense, infuse whatever I can within that to create the reality that makes the film work. You know, the films that resonate with me in another way were, you know, I played to Sleep with Anger, a movie by Charles Burnett, which is in the Library of Congress in the United States, or which I produced that movie, and also Beloved, or The Color Purple, or The Royal Tenenbaums. Somebody's in The Royal Tenenbaums, you know. I'll tell you the story. I turned down Ocean's 11 to do The Royal Tenenbaums because I thought it was interesting. It was more interesting to me to do The Royal Tenenbaums, and I'm so happy I did that with Wes Anderson. Or, you know, Be Kind, Rewind with Michel Gondry, or even Mandalay, which I did with Lars Van Trier. You know, so I try to step out of what is considered, you know, the norm or what people expect, and find other places and other stories, you know. And I mean, but it's all the work. It's all about ultimately the work, you know. And there have been moments in the work that have been special, and go beyond what the occupation is.
Yeah, thinking of special, I know that you have actually played one of 3 characters who have survived a meeting with a predator. Were there, back in the 90s, any plans of making a Predator 3 with like you and Arnold in the main roles?
With what?
I mean, in the Predator 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the only survivor. In Predator 2, you are the only survivor. Were they back in the 90s
Did Arnold survive Predator 1?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. I didn't look at it, you know, I hadn't seen it. Now, it's a funny thing because I had just finished Color Purple, and it was released in 1985. And I went, after I finished, I went to do a play at Scifiworld, Gary Sinise and John Malkovich Theater in Chicago. And I got several offers, you know, and one of the offers I turned down was Predator 1, Carl Weathers' role. And it's only because I had just come out of Color Purple, not just because, but there's a scene where Carl Weathers brutalizes this woman, and I could not do another movie. They had me brutalizing a woman, you know what I'm saying? You know, because when I got to Chicago in January, Color Purple was released December, just before Christmas, in 1985. I got to Chicago in 1986 to do this play, and there was discussions going all around the city about The Color Purple. They were in town hall. There were town hall meetings about this film. You believe it? There were meetings, people were having meetings at their churches. Everybody had a discussion about this. Everybody had opinion about it. Everybody had a yay, a nay, all the other kind of things. And the main person they didn't care too much was for Mr. was my character in The Color Purple. And so I could not do another film where I was kind of like forcibly kind of, you know, attacking a woman as this film was. So I turned it down. And right after I turned it down, a few days later, a few weeks later, I got a script, and I got a script that they wanted me to come to LA and read. And so I was off, the house is dark on Monday night, there's no theater on Monday night. So I flew out Monday evening. I got the script Monday, I flew out that evening, I read the script on the play, and then I met at 6:30 in the morning at Richard Donner's house with Joel Silver, with Mark Canton, who's one of the three heads of Warner Brothers, and Mel. At 6:30 in the morning, we read the script, and after we read the script together, Mark Canton, I remember, said, let's go make a movie. And then I got on a plane and went back to perform Tuesday night in Chicago, to perform the play I was in, A Lesson from Alice at Scifiworld. But it all happened that way, you know. And before I knew it, we had by the time I got back to return to Chicago, we had negotiated a deal, and we were doing the film. And so, you know, you know, things, I forgot what the question was. What's the question then?
The question was whether there was any plans for making a Predator 3 with like you and Arnold in
no. And so when I on the Predator 2, I was doing Flight of the Intruder in Hawaii. And my agent called me and he said, man, Danny, just listen before you react. They're going to do a Predator 2. Arnold doesn't want to do it. And they want you to do it. And I think by 1990 I had done Lethal 2, by 1990. And so I read the script, and I love the idea that I survived. I love that idea. You know, and it's really something else because I was telling someone that I hired a trainer because what I'd always done from the time that I was really, really young was run. You know, run to the park, run on the beach, which I do, run 4 miles on the sand on the beach or something like that. I always done that since very, very young. But I had never lifted weights. And I'm really not that heavy, big in the shoulders and chest. So I lifted weights. I had a trainer, we lifted weights and everything else, man. And I really, really probably was in the best shape for doing that movie. So I was running in the morning, I'd get up in the morning, I'd run at 6, we'd lift weights, and it was like really cold out at San Francisco Beach in the morning. but I was in such great shape, man, for the movie when I did the movie, you know. And but that's all. I just only wanted to do one of them, you know. I had enough. I didn't have to do another one. I didn't have to do another one, you know. But I had enough, you know. Most of the things, you know, I had my one franchise film, you know, in Lethal Weapon, and I'm proud of what we did, and I'm happy we didn't do any more. We didn't overdo it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes what happens is people overdo it.
Is there anyone out there who has a question before I continue? Oh, yes.
Do you pronounce it Glover or Glover?
You know, sometimes it depends on. It comes from the same glove. You know, it's an English name, Glover. But some people call me Glover and everything else. And it doesn't bother Danny Glover. But I think now, as I think about it now, I like Glover better.
First, I want to say I love your work, Danny.
Thank you.
My question to you is, if you got the chance to do a new Lethal movie with Mel Gibson, would you consider doing that, or do you think it's...
You know, sometimes you say, you know, no mouse, no more. But you know, I've talked to Richard Donner over the years, and Richard always wanted to do at least number 5 and number 6, the director. He's always wanted to do that. And I'm sure if it was, the scenario doesn't work the same way anymore. It's like, I'm 67, and Mel is 58, you know, so we're not the guys you saw. We did the first one in 86, shot that 86. We're not the guys you saw almost 27 years ago. You know, it's not the same. Over 27 years ago we shot that movie. So, it had to be something really interesting, different, and I think in nature smaller, where we would kind of introduce new players, a new Martin and a new Riggs, a new Murtaugh. You know, I think it would have to be that if I think about it. You know, when I think about it. Yeah. But yeah, it would have to be that. Because none of us, you don't expect any of us doing Blitzcom. I mean, I'm surprised at some of the stuff that I did in Predator 2, you know, hanging off of buildings and all the stuff that I did. Oh man, that was physically grueling.
Hello, Mr. Glover. I wonder if you could talk a bit about working with the first Jigsaw and Saw movie.
Man, every time sometimes when you mention a movie, there's always a story, man. Let me tell you. James, I saw my, I had just I was doing a play on Broadway in '83, not in 2003. And I was happy I was back in New York because my sister at the time was terminally ill, and and to me, I needed to be someplace where I saw her. So it just, I'm saying, fortuitous, since she was going through her transition, that I was there and wasn't running all over Sweden and someplace else, going here, going there. And I had these guys come see the play that I was in. So after that, they went to, I met them in LA after I finished the play. And He said, we want you to see something. It's about 20 minutes of a film, and I saw the film and meet the director. James had saw me in an infomercial in Australia where I was doing Pilates. Yeah, I was doing Pilates when basically there were dancers and women. No men were doing Pilates. You know, when I was doing it in 1995, when I was doing Pilates. And a friend of mine, Maury Windsor, had a video, made a video that she now, I don't know if she teaches anymore, but she's sold a video worldwide, and it's Matt Pilates. But I always worked on the Reformer and the Cadillac and the other kind of tools with Pilates. You even do Pilates here?
Yes.
You know what Pilates is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. None of you do it? Man.
Like sci-fi.
Oh man, that shit was good. You know, that stuff was good. So he saw me, so I sat down in this guy's office, and I looked at this guy and said, this is nice, this is interesting. How much you gonna make it for? Oh, we're gonna make it for $1 million. And I said, can I put some money in? Oh no, we got all our money. We got all the money. I said, okay, all right. Because I knew the move, I had a feeling this film was gonna go somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And so so the guys were also representing, what's my man's name? 2.5 Men. He's no longer on it. Charlie Sheen. And so I said, well, look here, I got $100,000. I put in, no, we don't need no more money. And so they did need some more money, but they went to Charlie Sheen because they were declining. I said, okay. So, and they gave him a real nice deal for the money put in. So I said, I better give me a new manager. Oh man, but you know, it just happens like that. Sometimes, it is someone to bring you something, and you say, let me fly with this, let me go with this, you know? I mean, it's just like, I remember I was at the Oscars, and Mel and I were presenters in 1988, and this woman came up to me, and I'd known her when I was in LA. We were doing small theater, so my play would be on 3 nights, her play would be on 2 nights, and now she's an agent. She said, I want to come to you with 2 projects. And so I was shooting Lonesome Dove in Del Rio, Texas, where you had to take a little small, tiny plane to get into. And she came down there with these 2 projects. And I read one called To Sleep with Anger. And it's some things that you read something and you can't figure out, it just keeps pulling you in. He's pulling you in. And I had all these kind of memories and thought, feelings that were intuitive feelings that go beyond my own, that I couldn't explain if I was, a rational discussion, you know, with my own consciousness, you know, my own conscience. And so I ended up doing it, and it wins the best independent film in the States that year, and it was one of the great things that I choose, you know, or something told me when I met Wes Anderson, and Wes Anderson wanted me to do Royal Tenenbaums. I said, well, there's not enough in the movie for me to do anything. So, and he said, but I'll write some more scenes. I'll write some other stuff for you to do it. And I said, yeah, but you know, when somebody writes something, they're gonna write some other stuff. Usually that's the stuff that ends up on the floor, your stuff. They write your stuff. And so, but I'll tell you, so I I asked, whenever I come to New York, I call Wes and said, Weston, let's hang out, man. I want to do something. Okay, man, really want you to think about doing a film. So I'm a Goodwill ambassador for UNICEF. And so I had an event at the UN, and Mark Mallock Brown, who was the head of UNICEF, and at the time Kofi Annan, who was the Secretary General of UNICEF, and everything else. And I bring Wes backstage, man. I want to introduce, two of the most important people in the world. You know what I'm saying? So Wes sees Kofi Annan, and he told me, he said, that's the look I want you to have in the movie. So I'm introducing the cat, one of the most important people in the world. He's thinking about his movie, man. and I looked at him, man. I said to him, you said that? I'm introducing you to you. You said that, I'm doing the movie. Since you were able to come here, I'm introducing you to one of the most important people in the world at that time, and everything else. And first thing you think about is your movie and how the look you have on in the movie. I want to do your movie now. So some of those quirky little things happen that make you want to do something, you know what I mean? Or not do something. And there's some stuff that I'm not going to go into that I decided I didn't want to do, and happy I didn't do. But that Saw was one of those things that I said, oh, this is going to be interesting. I said, this is going to work. We shot it all on the stage, the first one. We didn't leave all in one building on the stage. And I said, this thing is going to work. And it did.
We really need to start running up, but I have one final question.
Hi.
How you doing? You took a picture with me.
Yeah. You said you look for interesting characters. And is that what you saw in Detective Tapp?
I'm sorry?
Detective Tapp in Saw. Is that, you said you look for interesting characters, or different characters. Is that what you saw in Detective Tapp?
Well, I didn't. I thought the concept was going to work. I felt the concept, in a sense. When I saw he had put together maybe 12 to 15 minutes of what the film was. I wanted to see more. You see what I'm saying? In fact, I don't think I saw anything in terms of Detective Tapp. I think I saw what I saw as the story unfolded. I wanted to see more. I wanted to say, well, let me see more of this. So I was hanging on the edge just for the 12 to 15 minutes. And that's what I'm saying in terms of that. Not specifically. I'm going to always go for story before character. You see what I'm saying? And because the character exists and his experience is contextualized within the story itself and his relationship with other characters. So I'm trying to find out, where does this story work? Whatever it was, you know? And I know it's funny about Lethal Weapon. Mel and I met, we went to Venice Film Festival in 1985. And we had never met before. And when we first met, we just hit it off. And we talked about, we talked about some things and everything else. And he said, man, we ought to do something together. This is 1985. And then what translates it into? Lethal Weapon, you know? There's no, Lethal Weapon wasn't on, it may have been on somebody's radar screen. It may have been on Mel's and not on Mel's, you know? But, you know, things happen, you know? And there's a really wonderful story that happened in terms of Lethal Weapon. There was a great woman, a great casting woman named Marion Doherty. And Marion Doherty is considered to be the grand dame of modern casting. I mean, she casted Pacino, Hoffman, Meryl Streep, Jon Voight in his first major role. Did I say De Niro? You know, you go on and on and on and on and on. This woman, she's casting people in their first role. So Marion Doherty came to see me in a small play in a small theater in LA. I mean, off the being too candid with me and another actor. And what she did was she just filed that back in her memory. So in 1979, she casted me as Escape from Alcatraz. Now, she initially was going to be a part of an ensemble group, but they ran into budget. This is Clint Eastwood. And I only had about 4 days. And so as my career went along and along and along, she's the kind of person who looked at it, noted it and everything else. So when they cast the movie, the major roles, what will happen is the director and his assistant and the casting person and her assistant will get together and they'll meet just the four of them. And in this case, Marion met with Dick Donner, and so first thing that Dick says, and he's very hopeful, "Oh, what do you think about Riggs?" And he says, she says, "What about Mel Gibson?" He said, yeah, I like that idea. And then he said, "What do you think about Murtaugh?" And Murtaugh's an Irish name or something like that. And so Marion said, "What about Danny Glover?" And I had just finished Color Purple, which was a Warner Brother film. And Dick came out of his mouth and said, "But he's black." And Marion looked him straight in the eye and said, "Yes, he's black, so what?" "Yeah, he's black, so what?" It used her clout and her courage. If some other casting agent who didn't have her clout may have said, "Oh, okay, what about so-and-so else?" But she looked him directly in the eye and said, "Yeah, he's black, so what?" And Dick stepped back and says, "Did I say that?" "Oh, yeah, find out his schedule." So it took some person, in this case a woman, to stand up in the face of something and said, "I think he's right for the role. And it doesn't matter what color he is. If he was blue, he's right for the role." You know what I'm saying? Yes. And that's what Marion Doherty did. And I just heard the story about 2 years ago. I never knew that happened. And all the time, I just heard the story. I was doing the interview about her, and it was because she just passed away about a little bit over a year ago. And I was doing the interview, they were trying to get me to do a documentary and say what I think about it. And when I see her, she was elderly, she was very quiet. She said, "How you doing, Danny? Things going good, Danny?" That's about all she said to me ever. In the whole time that I'd see her in different places. But I never knew she said that, stood up in that moment in that small room where there were no cameras. Everything that took place in that room was between the two of them, the four of them, and everything. And she said that and stood up. I said, "Wow, you never know." That's a career, man. You never know. All right? Thank you.